always like to walk in the room and hear all the chatter and see all the faces, new faces, folks that I've known for some time. So thank you so much for being here. For those of you that don't know, my name is Zenovia Harris. I serve as the CEO for the Kent Chamber of Commerce. So on behalf of myself, my staff, board of directors, we'd like to welcome you to our June luncheon. Today is our legislative wrap-up, so we have a panel of our local legislators to kind of talk about the session a little bit. The reason why we're here today is because the 2024 session of the legislature came to a close just before 6 p.m. on Thursday, the 7th of March, marking another on-time adjournment for lawmakers. The preceding 60 days were a sprint where nearly 1,200 bills were introduced and around 380 ultimately passed on to the governor's desk. So as a collective, the Kent Chamber of Commerce, along with the South Sound Chamber of Commerce Legislative Coalition, closely tracked several critical areas. One of those areas and what we're really known for is transportation. Hey, Sam, I didn't see you there. Transportation, the supplemental transportation budget, we were particularly focused on ensuring adequate funding for road maintenance, ferry services, and crucial projects like the 167 and the 509 Gateway Project. And the restored funding for the Gateway Project was a significant achievement for us here in South King County. Workforce training and education, some of the key bills we monitored, several important bills that the impact of workforce training and education, including House Bill 2331 regarding the prohibition of banning classroom materials, House Bill 2180, and also House Bill 2494. You also have on your tables a list of our update that we received from our lobbyists via the South Sound Chamber Coalition. So you have that information there in front of you. We also track some energy and climate change bills that allow Puget Sound Energy to transition from natural gas, aligning with decarbonization goals. Of course, general business was on our list. And so employer impact bills, several bills that were impacting employers were tracked. Senate Bill 5778, banning captive audience meetings. House Bill 2467, which is the long-term care insurance for out-of-state employees, and a few others. Of course, we had public safety on the list there, so police pursuit standards, so the passage of I-2113, which right-sized police pursuit standards, was a significant development. And so additionally, House Bill 2153 and 1531 were important bills related to public safety. If I had to say, out of all the phone calls that we receive at the chamber when it comes to advocacy work, it is related to safety and housing, right? And so those two things kind of go together: workforce training, housing, and policing. Not policing, but safety kind of all go together. Even the folks unhoused need to be safe. And so I just want to be clear that I am not making the correlation there, but the folks that are unhoused also need to be safe, and that is a concern for our businesses. We've received a lot of calls this week about a new encampment that has actually come up, and we have a statement that we'll be making a little bit later. Not going to belabor all of these, but again, you have it there. If you are interested to see all of the bills that the Chamber and the Coalition either were for or against, we do have a couple of copies. It's a 34-page document, so we didn't print them for everyone, but if you are interested, it is on the registration table, and you can definitely take a look at that. But the other topics that are important to us are housing, childcare and early learning, and then also healthcare. So today, you're really highly encouraged to ask questions. So we've planned for that, and there are note cards there. So if you're not comfortable with asking your question out loud, please wait for the mic to come to you. You're able to write those down, and you can pass it to any one of my staff members, so we can make sure that those questions get answered. But again, thank you so much for being here. Your engagement is really important. It does go beyond coming to this event. It really goes to calling your legislators during session, after session, setting up lunch. I've called Representative Entenman multiple times, Tina Orwall. I see them in the community. And so these are people in our community as well. And so I want you to remember that they love to hear the stories that are going on. And so I'm sure they're tired of hearing from me. They want to hear from you, right? My job, I get paid to speak for you, but you actually are the one that is experiencing it. And I think they would find value in hearing that from you. So this is all the time that I get today. I'm now going to introduce our moderator for today. So that is our past president, John Scully. He is the CEO of Scully Insurance. John has been in the insurance field for more than 10 years. I love his mission statement, his tagline, which is, we treat you like family because you are. I think that's really important. And so throughout his, 8, 9 years at the chamber, he served on multiple committees, served as in leadership roles, and really has been a guide for me as we transition and grow the chamber. So help me welcome John, please.
Thank you. Before I call the panel up, I'd like to mention that the chamber did reach out to the mayor regarding the homeless situation in Kent by the motel. And as we know, it's getting pretty bad over there. This is county property. The mayor has asked the county to do a joint removal, but they have declined at this moment. She's also received emails or requests to move them into the hotel. Again, not the city property. And the county would need to apply for a conditional use permit. The mayor is working on solving this issue as we speak, and the chamber will follow up and give updates on as they come. If you want to help in the effort, you can reach out to King County Executive Offices by scanning the QR code on the back of your agenda. Now I will call our elected officials to the table to begin the conversation. Each elected official representative will share their proudest moments of the 2024 session and opportunities as we look at 2025 and look at where we're going to go as a state. Each elected official has been told to prepare remarks for 5 to 8 minutes, and if we stay in time, we'll have time for questions. I will start first with Senator Keiser.
First of all, my name is Senator Karen Keiser. I have been your senator for a long time, and this is my final legislative report because I'm going to retire in December of this year. So it's been a wonderful opportunity, a great honor. I have been so happy to work with the Kent community and all the communities from the 33rd Legislative District over the years. We've gotten some really good things done. I'm just thrilled that we're thriving, and we are thriving. So I'll give you my last and final legislative report this year. We came out on time and with a balanced budget. Now that's kind of the first rule of operating in a legislative session when you can. And we also came out with a budget that maintained our financial stability and also standing. We have now earned a AAA bond rating from Moody's. Why that's important, as you know, if you're in finances, is when your bond rating is high, your interest rates are lower. And we have to sell bonds for all of our capital construction and a lot of other projects like the transportation projects we're doing on the Gateway 167-509 completion. So having a lower bond rating, having a high bond rating and a lower interest rate is a great help for our budget. And we are also rated nationally as one of the top 5 states in the nation for business. Also one of the top 5 stations in the nation for labor. I call that a win-win arrangement. So that's really something I'm very, very happy and proud of. One of the big issues, 2 big issues that have me greatly concerned that I worked on this last year, public safety and housing. And on public safety, we know that we have had incredible uptake in random violence and really unexplainable homicides. There was this horrible event on the Metro bus where a man attacked, I could go on. And it just seems like we've become a little bit unhinged as a community and as a society. So public safety is a major goal and job of all civilizations and governments. And I tried to help the city of Kent, which has had its struggles with staffing in its police department and other issues in our community, listening closely to constituents' concerns as well. And both Representative Stearns and I co-sponsored legislation at the request of the city of Kent to give authority to our cities and municipalities to be able to authorize a small sales tax increase that would be dedicated to public safety programs. Both bills were introduced in the House and the Senate. This was not a good year for tax increases. We did have a very productive hearing on the bill in the Senate Ways and Means Committee, where it was brought forward that once again, Kent has become a kind of poster child as one of the victims of what's called mainstream sales taxes. When they decided to have the sales taxes go at the end point of the sell, not at the arrival point. So all of the warehouse goods that came to Kent that used to be levied a sales tax no longer have that. It goes to the end point, not to the midpoint. So Kent has lost millions of dollars in revenue from sales taxes over the last decade while this change in the sales tax arrangement was underway. So it's been a real decided disadvantage for the city of Kent that still has not been remediated. We've tried a few times with some backfill money for the city of Kent, but it has not fully been remediated. So unfortunately, that bill to try and increase public safety funding, and that's not only police services, but all kinds of public safety programs, did not pass, but I think it will be back. And I won't be there to work it, but I know Representative Stearns will be able to. So we've got work ahead of us on that. But we did do a few other things that does help in some way, I think, our criminal justice system. Although, as you know, most of it is a local issue. Local agencies and local authorities really prevail in terms of criminal justice for the most part. But we did provide more funding for training of new officers. You know, we have a criminal justice training center over in Burien. In the past, cities have had to pony up 25% of the cost of that training. The state is now paying 100% of the cost of training for new officers. So that's another hopeful step in achieving better staffing in all of our cities around the South King County area. We've also increased the number of academy classes. We also passed a bill I'm very happy to have passed, called Senate Bill 5424, which was sponsored by Senator John Lovett, who is a former officer himself. And it allows for, get this, flexibility for police officers. In the past, the law has required all police officers had to work 40 hours a week regardless, 40 hours if they couldn't be holding the job. Well, that really makes it difficult for people who have family responsibilities, who have to give birth, who have to take care of a family member. So having the ability to have experienced officers negotiate part-time period of service is a step in the right direction, and I hope will help us change the culture of police staffing and increase the number of women in police agencies, because it has been really hard to get to our goal of 30% by 2030 of women in our local police departments. A few other things that we did that expands, and it's a workforce issue in a way too. We allowed DACA recipients to serve in our Washington civil service as well as our law enforcement agencies. DACA are the dreamers, people who came into our country as children, sometimes infants, and have never been able to get legalized as citizens and are unable to apply for most civil service jobs or law enforcement jobs because of that. But now they will be able to if they're a registered DACA recipient. We also expanded the pool of qualified law enforcement candidates to allow lawful permanent residents who are in our state to work alongside citizens, because currently only citizens can apply and be employed in police agencies. And we have other task forces underway to work on staffing and workforce training for all kinds of law enforcement and public agencies. Let me turn to housing just for a minute. In the past 2 years, we have done a huge increase in our housing staffing. This year, I believe we put $127 million more into our housing trust fund, which helps to fund many housing projects all over the state. And housing is a huge issue, as we know, not only for those who qualify for low-income housing, but for workforce housing, for regular, how do we make the mortgage payment kind of housing. And we took several steps to expand the stock of housing, including expanding a property tax exemption for seniors and disabled people who put, it's called an ADU, accessory dwelling unit, on their property. It's kind of like a mother-in-law apartment in the backyard, with full services, of course, but having a property tax benefit for people who do that, who, especially if they're senior or disabled, will, I hope, open that door a little further. And we also had increased protections for people living in mobile homes. Just one last thing, we did provide in our supplemental budget specific funding for the situation in Vela, which was at the Methodist Church there, where hundreds of asylum seekers have landed in the last couple of years, really. I believe we got $2 million for the city of Tukwila to provide services, and we got another $2.5 million for actual services to the asylum seekers through our Department of Commerce. The city of Kent can access some of those dollars. King County can access some of those dollars. Tukwila can access some of those dollars. The state has provided the dollars. The local authorities have to provide the services and the arrangements, and we can't do that part. But we can provide the money. That's kind of our job. And I think we've taken a step in the right direction there. I'm going to stop talking at this point because there's all these other wonderful people with other things. So I'll stop.
Thank you, Senator Keiser. Senator Kauffman.
Good afternoon, I'm Claudia Kauffman, State Senator 47th, which is the east half of Kent, Covington, north half, and west half of Auburn. I'm happy to be here. Thank you again to Kent Chamber for organizing this event. Thank you to everyone who's participating, who is in attendance, and keeping up the great work of being involved. Please feel free to reach any of us down in Olympia at any time. We are open and willing and eager to hear from you all. In terms of what was mentioned earlier, there were 381 total bills passed in a very short session. It was short, it was only 60 days. But I would like to highlight that of those, 96% of those passed with bipartisan support. And so that you know that we are working together, that we are down there working with our partners on both sides of the aisle, working to support good legislation that will benefit all of our communities. For Kent in specific, when it comes to transportation, there were several bills that dealt with red light cameras and speed cameras and a number of things in those areas. There was a specific request that came from the city of Kent, and it took all the way to the last day, amendment after amendment, to get it just the way we need it here in Kent, and I was able to provide that amendment on the Senate floor that would allow the city of Kent, which currently does have red light cameras, and what they use their red light camera revenue for is to help in terms of their equipment. So body-worn cameras or dash cams, the things that they need that aren't always provided. And so what they wanted was to continue to be able to use the revenues from the red light cameras to be used for what they need. In addition to that, there was also some organization around what cities report. Each city that reports on the red light cameras, they report different things, and so we provided a very standard, similar template for what cities need to report for those, and how many tickets and how much revenue and to increase safety. Part of that is really to increase safety in a particular area, and Kent has been very judicious in moving the red light camera. Once they increase safety in this particular intersection, they will move it to the next intersection. I don't know if you notice, sometimes those signs come up in this intersection or that. Well, they're working to improve safety. And so by moving them, they show and demonstrate that they have increased the safety in that area. So it's great to work with the City of Kent on those things. In terms of what Senator Keiser had mentioned about the sales tax revenue, and whether that sales tax is at the beginning, in the middle, or the end. I think that is going to sunset this year, what it currently does. And so we need to work to ensure that that is extended so that we do have sales tax coming to Kent. Kent has one of the lower sales tax revenue than other cities because there's so much manufacturing in this district, and if the sales tax doesn't come from the manufacturing, it's at the point of sale or where they receive it. And so we'll work with my colleagues to address that. Getting back to transportation, I know a lot of you drive through Highway 18. It's a main corridor, to get to Kent, Covington, and Auburn. Highway 18, last year was set to be put off until 2030. And my colleagues and I worked hard to ensure that we moved it. Like, no, we need to fix Highway 18 now and not wait till 2030. So if you're like one of those many folks that are driving through Highway 18 there and all this construction, you can say,
we're trying to make it safer.
yeah, we're trying
to make it safer.
It's working, and it's a very large project. But we wanted to make sure that moved to the front of the line and not be put off for another 7 years. In terms of things that I really worked on, I fought for some things that basically we talk about when we have a missing loved one. If someone in your life goes missing, what do you do? How do you? And I've had an immediate family member go missing, and it's scary. It's very scary times. There's so much uncertainty. So one of my bills was to help coordinate information from the state of Washington with the families, just to have a proof of life. Just, is that person alive? Do we know that? And what my bill did was said that the State Patrol, Washington State Patrol, could request information from places within the state, such as DSHs. If they're having benefits, if they have having to use their state benefits. And so, that's so that you have a proof of life. Washington State also created a toolkit for missing people. This is a reality in our communities, and we need to help address and provide resources and tools and services to help find people. Another thing that was close to my heart in particular was around working with folks who are family caregivers. And I don't know if we have any family caregivers in the room. So know that the state defines what family is. And so for many in different cultures and from different areas, the definition of family is much larger than what the state has. And my bill, which was successful, expanded that definition to include in-laws. So a mother-in-law or sister-in-law or brother-in-law could be defined as a family caregiver. Some of these things that, maybe, simple fixes, small fixes, but it's very important. And it impacts a tremendous amount of people. Another thing was on records retention. State law, you have, they keep records for so long, but there are facilities out there, such as Lakeland Village, which was created in 1926 for the developmentally disabled. And I had actually received a call from a constituent saying that I'm doing my family research, I'm doing my family tree, looking at my ancestry, and I've discovered that one of my relatives was in Lakeland Village. And and there's a threat that these records will be destroyed after so many years. And I want to keep those, I want to learn. And so my bill directed the state, Department of Social Health Services, Department of Archives, and to really work on identifying those records and create a plan to preserve them, to digitize them, to have them available for families who are looking. If there's a loved one who was up there, then that's very important to know. But we also worked on a number of different things, including the the public safety as Senator Keiser had mentioned earlier, we worked on with the Department of Commerce to assist local communities in providing technical assistance and providing applications and grants, prioritizing applications for creating resources and help grant applicants access funds through the Department of Commerce, through the federal government. We also codified the Community Economic Revitalization Board, and that's a rural broadband curb board. It provides financial assistance to local governments as well as to federally recognized and tribal governments for public infrastructure. I had a bill which allowed local governments to exempt businesses. There's the local lodging tax, local lodging tourism promotion area. And so there were some that are actually came from this district. There were some that said, well, I'm a campground. I don't provide lodging, it's just a campground. I want to be exempt. And there was a medical facility, like, we're not providing lodging, we're a medical facility, so we want to be exempt. And this actually came from the tourism board that, we recognize that these are not lodging facilities. And so my bill would allow them to exempt that. Initially they wanted to exempt it, but learned through the state auditor that they are not allowed. It has to come through legislative session, so we worked and we fixed that. And we also worked to cut a tremendous amount of red tape through the statewide tourism marketing account. So those are some of my priorities, some of the things that I've worked on. It's important to continue to work on, of course, higher education and our public school system, and ensuring that we have accurate curriculum and that we have additional funding for the students, for our, especially our special education funding, which we also added to this year. And I appreciate the great work that Superintendent Vela has been doing. Really want to support all of our education, higher education as well, K through 12. So thank you again for the opportunity, and I'll move it on to the next person.
Thank you, Senator Kauffman. Superintendent Vela, would you do you next?
Thank you, appreciate that. Senator Kauffman, thank you for that. Thank you to all of you that are working in the legislature to support kids. That is greatly appreciated, and our work is not finished, but will continue, right? So thank you for that. I wanted to, first of all, thank Kent Chamber for the opportunity to be on the panel today. Also wanted to thank our host, Greenwood College, for the space. This is a great place to be able to be here and share it. I wanted just to preface my comments around 3 areas. One, to give you the kind of a state of the district as it relates to this region and the state. And we talked a little bit about the funding pieces, and I'll end with that. But I want to do it through some celebrations and opportunities in each one of those. The first on the district and the state of district from a celebration standpoint that's related to the business partnerships that are here today, and that is the Kent School District has really embarked upon over the last couple of years, year and a half, where we have started our workforce development task force. I saw Bill Ellis here earlier, he stepped out. We've been working closely with the mayor on what are those partnerships that we can enter in with business to create apprenticeships, to create those types of pathways for our young people to be able to access sooner than high school. And so we've been working closely also with our local colleges, Green River, Benton Technical, Highline. They're part of this Workforce Development Council and Task Force. We're working closely with my team to develop a framework, which we're at now. We also are at a place where we're inviting businesses, and that's what the great thing is about opportunities like this, is to meet different businesses to talk about what are those connections and pathways we might be able to embark upon together. Another celebration from a state of the district, as you know, the pandemic was tough on all of us, business, communities, school district, etc. A celebration really for this region are the nonprofits that provide support for our communities, our families, our students here in the Kent region is so critical to us. We partner with agencies like the Kent Youth and Family Services, who have been around for over 50 years, providing mental health services, early childhood education, drug alcohol counseling, among other things. And so that is one community-based partner that continues to be a celebration for us. In addition, community schools in Kent, we have Central Vendu, we have Mother Africa, a number of other community-based partners that we closely partner with in support of our students and our communities. Some of you may or may not know, Kent School District makes up 72 square miles that includes 5 different municipalities, Kent being one. Very large. Our communities are very diverse. We have over 131 languages spoken in our district. You can kind of see, I see that as a celebration. That's part of what makes our community rich and also hopefully contributes to the businesses and the growth of those businesses with our community and our students. Another celebration that I wanted to share here, I'm not sure how much of this has been publicized, but our work, this work that I'm going to share, which directly impacts the economic stability of this region, especially along Central Avenue, and that is through our partnership with the City of Kent. We're also embarking upon a federal grant with the EPA to help support our community with the flooding that takes place right behind us here with the creek, Mill Creek, as well as what happens when we have to shut down Smith Hill and James Street. Raise your hand if you've had to drive through any of the floods or had to go around. Well, you can imagine the impact that has on busing children to their schools. Not just Mill Creek, but other schools around the area. And so we've worked in partnership over the last year and a half with our city partners, our tribal partners, our Army Corps of Engineers. All of us are coming together through a collective impact approach in order to apply for the grant. And we were just, I believe it was Senator Cantwell's office on Monday or Tuesday, walking the area of where we want to make an impact for our community. And everybody's on board. What they shared was this project or this grant checks off every single box that of a criteria that there's no reason we should be very competitive in getting this grant. So we're excited about that partnership. That also is going to help our business community with our travel routes. The other piece that I wanted to share, and I'm checking my time to be sure I'm okay, is really there's some things that the post-pandemic, and I hate to even say post because we're not done with pandemics, we've learned a lot from them. But I wanted to now shift to the impacts on our children and our families. And that is that the mental health support of our children and our families has increased exponentially. And I will add right now, Representative Orwall and others that are here at this table, this panel, that have greatly given their time, their efforts at the state level to support mental health in this area. And I thank you for that. The need is still there. We are fortunate that those community-based partners I mentioned continue to help support us. We have the needs there of children ages 8, 9, 10, below the 12-year-old range, where it requires consent to be able to provide some supports, but we need to have more opportunities for our young children for mental health services. From another perspective, I also wanted to say that also impacts the funding pieces, and we're going to work closely with our legislature this coming session to really continue looking at additional funding for special education, additional funding for our students that I mentioned, over 131 languages. We continue to grow in that area. We are a thriving community, a rich community because of that diversity. So we'll continue to partner with our legislatures in that area. And finally, I wanted to share just another celebration about our district, and that is that if you look at our region and look at what's happening across the state, country as well, there are school closures happening. You may have seen or heard that. So there is a very real fiscal impact to our school districts. I am proud to say that in the Kent School District, we are stable. It isn't that we have kind of got there yet, but we are stable at this time. And that is because of the partnerships that I just mentioned earlier in my comments. We continue to work together in that area because our children, particularly in this corridor, we share families and children in our school districts like Highline, Federal Way, Tequila, Renton, Auburn. We share those families. We heard today of the encampment that's there. Take a look at the children who gets the opportunity, not the have to, but the opportunity to serve them. And we need that funding to continue to support any family that comes into our region. So thank you for the opportunity to share just a few comments about the state, the district, and the region.
Thank you. Representative Orwall.
Good afternoon. I'm Tina Orwall. I have the honor of representing the 33rd Legislative District. You know, I want to start with a shout out to my seatmate next to me. Senator Karen Keiser has served for 30 years. She has been a leader on healthcare, not only in our state, our nation, unemployment insurance, apprenticeship. So I hope you will help give it a hand for Senator Keiser. I'm going to miss her. We partner on all kind of good things. Some of the areas I want to talk about is behavioral health. I do also want to talk about language access, public safety, and housing, or probably the 4 areas I'm going to talk about. How many people in the room have heard of 988? Oh, okay. Well, 988 is a 3-digit behavioral health crisis line. It was started at the national level. I'm really proud we were one of the first states to actually pass comprehensive 988 legislation with the fee to support the work. And it really has 3 components. It's a place to call, someone to respond, and the third component is a place to go. So we're in the middle of kind of implementing what is going to be pretty substantial changes to our behavioral health system, which I think is really important because a lot of people are traumatized when they reached out for help or they don't get the help they need. So for an example, the 988, it's clinicians that answer the phones, and it's phone, text, or chat. Now, I don't know how many people have young children or grandchildren. Do they call you? No, they text or chat. And what they've seen this year with the text is they've had 1,000% increase in the number of texts. So they have a lot of young adults that are reaching out. And so we're really happy. We also have the first Native and Strong line in the country, thanks to the legislature. And we had leaders that helped Representative Lukanov include text and chat on that feature too. One of the things that I'm really excited about, that I also think we're the first in the nation, is we're co-locating some of our 988 clinicians with 911. So we have Valleycom, and I'm so sad that Laura Ulin is retiring because I love her. But that's where we cited a team of 988 folks. And this is really important because a lot of people might call 911, but they might be better served by 988. So it allows the transfer of those calls. And I have to tell you, having spent some time at 911, they have difficult jobs. It is so difficult. In fact, they find that a lot of people that do this work end up in crisis. So we hope having the mental health folks there is also helping on what is real secondary trauma. So I had a bill looking at the rapid response clinical teams, which we hope will begin next year. And they're an alternative to the police. And so that would be like behavioral health, that could be EMS, fire. But whenever possible, we'd like the clinical teams to respond. So I had a bill that actually gives some liability protection. So if cities or counties or entities do this work, they have the same protections as the response on 911. We also are looking at these crisis receiving centers. They would be an alternative to emergency departments and jail. I just want to applaud King County Council because they have done such a good job. You might have heard of Prop 1, which I'm glad passed, which there'll be 5 campuses. 4 will be for adults, 1 will be for children. We'd like to see at least 1 in South King County. So we're excited about that. I also want to do a shout out to, I think you leave, the superintendent. we partner on a lot of things. And one of the things is we have this group because we wanted to expand youth services, crisis services. We know a lot of our young adults are struggling right now. So we had this, this work group, and we invited students from Kent School. Janice kind of led those efforts, and they went back and did actually focus groups with other students. They're like, you can't attend, you'll ruin it. So we didn't go, but they came and they reported back to us. And the two things that the students asked for is they asked for more mental health in the schools. And they also asked that the staff providing it be as diverse as the student body. And so we got to work. And so some of the dollars we got were to actually have behavioral health agencies go into the schools. Right now, that's Valley Cities and CMAR. We'd like to expand that next year to many other providers in the community. And I know a lot of us want to work on that. And so again, we want to listen to the students and hear what they need. On the public safety front, I've done a lot to support survivors of sexual assault. And I am pleased to say after many years, we actually have tested all the 10,000 kids, which of course were survivors whose voices were never heard. So those are all tested. They've all entered the CODA system. It's identified a number of serial offenders, and I'd say over a dozen have been held accountable. In fact, there had been a young girl abducted and sexually assaulted in the Torchlight Parade a number of years ago, I think like 15 years ago. They ended up testing that kid recently. It connected to a sex offender in Florida. The FBI went, picked him up. He came back to our state and got 30 years. So, we're glad that we're helping to keep our community safe and really bring closure that the person that was impacted so that I can finally sleep at night. And that kind of broke my heart too, right? Not feeling safe. And so I'm really glad we're able to do that work. One of the things that we did, and I teamed up with Senator Keiser, was also bringing in more capital resources for our nonprofits. I know Dawn is here that does great work in DV. And again, we want to support all the agencies that are just supporting survivors. One of the other things I've worked on, there's a lot of talk about AI, right? And we're all trying to get our brains around AI and what does it mean. And so, I was able to work with my colleagues to do an AI intimate image, because there are examples both for adults and youth where someone takes their image and makes it an explicit photo. And we wanted to send a clear message that's not okay. So we do have kind of a criminal and civil right of action in our state now that says that's not going to be tolerated. There's more work to be done in that arena, very sad, around the children's images, and so hope to work on that next year. Language access. So again, I teamed up. Oh. Let me know. I'll be super quick. Is the language access in the schools, and again, there's multiple languages, and so we've been trying to do more around having language access coordinators. We'd like to work on translation. The other thing I work on is with the deaf and hard of hearing community. And, most of the bills come from constituents. And there was Hugo, and I started working with him and his mom when he was 7, and it took us 3 years. But Hugo and his friends came for a panel in the legislature. When I started working on this, I didn't realize private insurance didn't cover the cost of hearing aids, and they are expensive. I'm like, how can kids learn? How can adults connect? And so Hugo and his friends testified. I don't think there was a dry eye. They did such a great job. And so we passed it. It's called Hugo's Law. And now private insurance has to cover the cost, which could be thousands of dollars for families. So that started in January. If you know anyone that runs into trouble, let us know if that's not covered. It doesn't do federal employees. We can't kind of tell the federal level what to do. And though sometimes we'd like to. And then I want to say on the K-12 front, and then I will wrap up, is that the special education dollars are incredibly important. We're all advocating. We made an investment. We'd like to see a lot more. Also been working on running Start in the Trades in the summer. And again, we've had a lot of kids go through it the last few summers, but it's juniors and seniors. We had a huge number of foster youth that have gone through it, and they get introduced to all the trades. And it's just really exciting because there's so many great pathways. My son, he just finished his apprenticeship. He's a commercial electrician, and I'm so proud of him. So we want to make sure all the youth have access to a great career. So thank you.
Thank you, Representative Orwall. Representative Entenman.
Thank you. So this legislative session, of course, was a short session. We have 60 days. I am one of the few legislators who is actually on 4 committees. And so I was very busy this legislative session, as I am most legislative sessions. I wanted to thank Karen Keiser. I was the legislator who had worked on the streamlined sales tax bill in Kent. And so over the 6 years that I've been in the legislature, I believe this was the first time that Kent is no longer being included in monies to help to replace lost revenues from no longer receiving those taxes. So that has been a challenge for the city as far as how we are going to fund the services that we need in the city of Kent. I'm glad that Kent has great federal partners and great county partners so that they can work together to try to do things that are difficult to do when communities feel that they are being impacted by tax increases. Tax increases are difficult because if you are on a fixed income, you receive the same amount of money all the time. Our property taxes are going up, they're going up for seniors. That is a concern. It's also very difficult to purchase your first home in our community. So being on the housing committee and voting in favor of the middle housing bill, I know that there were a lot of people who are concerned about that. Most homeowners association communities are exempt from middle housing. So for a number of people who had concerns, it is important to know that if you have an established HOA, it won't impact the community in which you live. I think that's important information for people to have. We talked about mental health. I am the vice chair of the P5, which is prenatal to 5-year-old mental health consortium in the legislature. And most people think, well, prenatal mental health, parents who are pregnant need mental health assistance. Sometimes when you have a child, it is more stressful than you think it's going to be, and parents will experience postnatal depression. And then there is also something that can happen, which is you are isolated, your child may be developing typically, may not, but once they enter into a child care situation, you may learn that your child needs some assistance, that your family needs some assistance. So with the behavioral health dollars for parents of young children and for caregivers, what we are trying to do is catch those issues earlier in a child's development. And so as a part of the P5 prenatal health group, we were able to have additional dollars in the budget, in the early learning budget specifically for P5 families. I'm also on transportation. Earlier, Senator Kauffman talked about Highway 18. It's really a relationship between Highway 18 and I-90. It's where they intersect, and when you're coming down the hill or going up the hill in that Tiger Mountain area is where we have a lot of head-on crashes. So we are working to improve sightline and slow down the traffic so that people can arrive to and from that area safely. And that is what we are doing there in the Transportation Committee budget. I also have worked on a few bills myself, one around making sure that we have hunger-free college campuses. We have a number of students who, because they're in Running Start or because they are homeless or because they have aged out of foster care and they're trying to improve their lives, have difficulty with food insecurity on our college campuses. Not just our 34 community and technical colleges, but our other 6 4-year colleges and universities. So what we are doing is putting on every campus a benefit navigator to help those students to make sure that they are not food insecure when they are on campus. We're also building relationships directly between the college campuses and food distribution systems like Northwest Harvest, so that there is no middle person in between the college and the student and the school, and the distributor, because those schools already have pantries. We don't need to go from one pantry to another pantry. We can just deliver the food to our college campus. We are also piloting a free and reduced price lunch services on our college campuses. Many of our students right now who want to participate in Running Start don't leave their high schools until after lunch, because when they get to their colleges, they cannot afford food that is on campus. So they are making a choice to not go to classes earlier because they want to make sure they have lunch. We want to figure out a way to provide lunch for those students when they're on our college campuses, and so we now have a pilot to do that. There are a number of things that are happening in our legislative process, but I think what is most important, like Senator Kauffman said, is to understand that we work really well with folks on the other side of the aisle. That may not be our party, but they are a part of our state. And at the end of the day, what I have learned in the 6 years that I've been in the legislature is we really do have more in common than we have differences. It's simply most of the time, it's how we're going to pay for the things we think that people need. So I think it's important to not lose hope. We do work together more often than not. I just want to say thank you to my colleague, Chris, and everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Stearns.
I'm Chris Stearns, a representative from the 47th. I'm grateful for that honor to represent the people in the district, and I'm also really grateful for Senator Keiser. She's been a wonderful mentor and a person to really look up to in the legislature. And I'm also really glad that you are all here. It's good to be amongst friends. So I have quite a list to talk about, but I think I'll pare that down. I did want to follow up on a couple things. So the first one is that, as Senator Keiser mentioned, I sponsored the House version of the public safety sales tax, and I worked very closely with Mayor Ralph on that, and the Kent Police Chief. And the goal was to not just increase the number of police officers. And I think for Kent, the sales tax, if it had gone into effect, would have allowed about 45 or 49 more police officers in Kent. But it also would have increased court services, so prosecutors and public defenders. I'm still committed to that. Doing a sales tax in an election year is not the easiest thing. And in the very short session we had, it just didn't make it out of that pressure cooker. I am recommitted to working again with Mayor Ralph, and we have a meeting with the speaker coming up shortly, so we can talk about what is the best way to go forward with that. I made a commitment when I first ran to office that I would support reasonable but good efforts to improve police pursuits, and I'm proud I voted for the initiative this year. I just met last week with a couple automobile dealers in Auburn, and they both reported that even though the actual police law didn't go into effect last week, it was just simply the word on the street, and it has resulted in a reduction in property crime. So the word's getting out, and I think that's a really good thing. I do want to just also mention that I was really glad to work with the city of Kent on the new rapid ride line up on the East Hill, and to make sure that the housing that will be built there is appropriate for the transit hub. So I think that's a really good thing that's coming up. I'll also say that I worked with the mayor on the new stunt driving, racing law. So it allows for the immediate 72-hour seizure, forfeiture of a person's car who's caught doing that. And So the goal isn't really to throw them in jail. It's just to take the car away so they can't use it. And I think that's also become an effective deterrent. I will add that one of the things I'm really proud of doing is I have a background in energy, and I've been working on trying to figure out how we can provide, affordable but reliable, clean energy. And so I was really proud to have sponsored $25 million for the start the development of an advanced nuclear reactor out at Hanford, and that was done with Puget Sound Energy. And so that's I am all for solar and wind, but I think we also need reliable baseload power. And if we're going to go carbon free, whether it's 2035, 2050, we need reliable, affordable baseload power, and that's what advanced nuclear technology as well as fission can do. So I'm really proud to do work on that. And then the last thing I'll say is, as my colleagues have mentioned, we try hard, and I think we do a good job of working with our colleagues across the aisle. And I'm proud to report that I was just appointed to the Joint Legislative Committee on Civic Health. And so civic health is really how can we work with our colleagues across the aisle, or even colleagues within our own caucus, because we don't always see eye to eye. But we need to be respectful, and I think we do care a lot about each other. We certainly care about our districts and the constituents. So, that's a really good thing that I'm really looking forward to working on in the future. And thank you again for being here and for being such a wonderful host.
Thank you, Representative Stearns. We have one question. Any questions?
Thank you. I guess this question is probably for Senator Keiser and Representative Entenman. Dealing with the streamlined sales tax, I remember when that first came forward, and there's some question about whether we should adopt it or not. And honestly, I don't remember all the particulars about it. But there was some question about whether or not we ought to do it. And there was a sense that maybe it was the golden egg from the goose that was gonna fill the state coffers, or alternatively that there were golden federal strings attached to it that would produce some kind of benefit. And I'm wondering, based on whatever the hypothesis was when we went forward initially, has that really proven true? Because I have a hard time identifying any ROI that's commensurate, at least for cities like ours, and we've got Amazon fulfillment here, so the stuff that they deliver to my house 280 times a year or whatever it is, those tax dollars are staying here. Is there any possibility or any appetite at the legislature for stepping away from the state, stepping away from streamlined sales tax to restore the financial viability of cities like Kent that have been compromised? And if the answer is we don't know, but.
Well, at this time, we don't know. We
Okay.
haven't had that discussion. We do have concerns about next year's budget. We have heard estimates of $8 billion in the hole. There are some initiatives on the ballot now that if the voters vote for them, that will have a very large impact on our budget. I think it's important to have the discussion. I'm willing to engage with anyone who would like to have it.
I assume that one of the premises, I don't know if that's.
There's not always
If that's-
a look back.
Yeah.
I would love for us to have a
it seems logical that one of the bases for it would be that other folks all over the country are shipping tons of stuff into here. And so we want the sales tax here. And I don't know if that's proved true or not. So that's,
That's not proved true, but we don't have the evidence to prove it.
well, maybe we have the political.
So we need a study. So we need a study.
The political reality, sadly, is we had about 12 cities that lost revenue in the streetwide sales tax. We had about 50 cities that gained revenue in the streetwide sales tax, and they were the big cities like Seattle and we're the littler cities that lost. So political reality intrudes, unfortunately, because we are unfortunately not as powerful as all those other cities. So having equity is the argument, in my opinion, as opposed to budget issues. And these are local sales taxes, not state sales taxes. State sales taxes is uniform across the state. These are local sales taxes that are affected, and they affect our local communities. And I'm still angry about that.
Any other questions? Last question.
Hi there, my name is Gina Finley. I'm the Executive Director of Domestic Abuse Women's Network and Dawn. And I just want to take this opportunity, first of all, to say this is my first chamber event in Kent. I've been at my job 6 months and very lovely and kind of coming back. But I wanted to publicly thank Representative Orwall and Senator Keiser for sponsoring a capital budget request that we received. And our confidential shelter in Kent will be receiving an upgrade to its HVAC and heat pumps so our clients can experience air conditioning and the other comforts that we all enjoy. So thank you very much for supporting our shelter.
Thank you. Okay, thank you for your time. I will now turn this back over to Zenovia.
He'll get in trouble later, Senator Keiser, don't you worry about that. Thank you, good job, I love that. Thank you guys so much. Definitely appreciate you being here. You guys always answer when we call, even if it's just one call. I do want to say to Senator Keiser, we appreciate you at the chamber. There have been times we called and we're like, really? And then there's times we're like, oh yeah, thank you so much. So we've had all of those moments, but that is what good debate is about, right? And so we appreciate that when we call, you answer. Not that you always give us that answer, but you do answer, and that is important for us, and that goes for everyone. But thank you so much for your service. Thank you so much for your commitment to the business community, and I'm sure we'll see you around. They say retire, but that never really happens. So thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for being here.